Hello, I'm Carmen Salas, postdoctoral researcher at the Center for Interdisciplinary Research in Science and Humanities of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. The work I will share with you today in this 14th International Conference on Food Studies is entitled Socio-environmental Crisis as an Accelerator of Change, Sustainability Concerns Among Wine Producers in Baja California. This project is part of my postdoctoral research and a forthcoming article where I'm particularly interested in discussing changes in wine production and consumption cultures and their relationship with the socio-environmental crisis and sustainable transition. The research presented here builds on the result of previous doctoral work where I examined the expansion of the wine industry with globalization and its diversification into new geographies of Mexico and the US. The finding of this previous work revealed new relationship and interpretation between production, place of origin, and value. And it also showed that one of the current challenges in the value creation process in the wine industry is to respond and adapt to two significant global changes. These are climate change and socio-cultural change driven by new ideas and demands from wine coming from a new generation of consumers and producers. As it happened before with phenomena such as globalization, nowadays the climate crisis and the urgency towards sustainable transition can be interpreted as a threat or as an opportunity for change, innovation, and diversity in the agri-food sector. Consumers' preferences for quality, diversity, health, and their expectation for food safety, ethic, and sustainable food production reveal such opportunities for innovation. In this sense, the analysis of the agri-food sector and the wine sector as part of it show the relationship between social change and environmental change. From this perspective, this research explores the processes of change in the wine sector and how they are related to the transition to sustainable production. The starting point of this approach arises from the idea that sustainable transition needs more than just reaching some number and complying with certification. It also requires, as proposed by the anthropology of sustainability, a project of change. Central to this theoretical positioning is the relevance of the intrinsic value of diversity, cultural, biological, economic, and political diversity, and also diversity in knowledge and practices to respond and adapt to an unpredictable future. Unpredictability is one of the main characteristic of climate and social change, and this perspective proposes a better understanding of current changes to confront uncertainty. Along with this approach, Appadurai argues that periods of crisis, environmental, economic, or cultural crisis, are opportunities for change in which new values appear. However, the same author warns that the incorporation of new values and the change in the ways of knowing and judging people, things, or action involve slow and complex processes mediated by interests that vary for each context and time. Within these processes, globalization and the environmental crisis are disruptive and stressful phenomena, but at the same time, accelerators and drivers of change. Lichenko and O'Brien, who developed this argument, explain that this double exposure to globalization and climate crisis has given rise to a new context for responding to change. According to these authors, double exposure entails both negative and positive effects, and it is important to study the different responses that emerge in each particular context. With this background and theoretical positioning, the analysis presented in this work situates the new demands of the wine sector regarding quality, health, ethic, and sustainable production as part of these new responses to the environmental and social crisis. Thus, rather than a threat, the socio-environmental crisis generates new conditions that favors transformation and opportunities for change and innovation in this agri-food sector. Diversity in production and consumption cultures is positioned as central aspect of the transition to sustainability and adaptation to the unpredictable future of the wine sector. Such a diversification also seeks alternatives to the hegemonic system of varieties, techniques, perception, and values regarding the quality and value of wine production on a global scale. Therefore, climate change and the transition to sustainable production have generated a situation in which significant decisions must be made in the face of an uncertain and unpredictable future. Producers must decide whether to continue planting the same varieties and adapt, or plant new resistant varieties, whether to stay or leave the geographical indication in the countries where such classification system exists, whether to adopt new viticulture and winemaking practices, whether to use new packaging or bottling materials, among others. As Tattersall and DeSalle argue, this is creating a new scenario in which traditional quality paradigms are giving way to new paradigm. This new scenario represents an important challenge for a sector where taste and expectation are often conservative, and where, in general, permanence rather than change has been defended. So far, some of the changes associated with the environmental crisis that have been observed in the wine sector, although these are very different for each geography and place, are related to the increase in temperature and greater exposure to extreme temperature and rain variation. The above with consequences on the phenomenological cycle of the crop, the grape composition, the vineyard quality and yield, and the final wine composition. Among the adaptation responses to maintain quality within this new condition has been proposed the importance of the substitution of varieties, new clones, the improvement in the management of resources, especially water, the late pruning, planting in elevated areas, the use of microorganisms, plant covers, among others, as well as other measures that affect the production, distribution, and marketing of wine, like new processes and materials for bottling and packaging. Even the possibilities of geographically shifting wine production to more suitable latitude and altitude are being evaluated. Sustainability, climate change, and sustainable transition are global discourses contested in a particular way for each space and motivating diverse transformative processes. It is important to consider that wine is not a product of necessity, but an alcoholic drink in a society increasingly concerned about health and environmental care as part of healthy consumption. In this sense, wine is an hedonistic, exclusive product where the sustainability discourse can be read as distant or forced. However, within the agri-food industry, the wine sector is an example of those productions that favor the three pillars of sustainable development: people, planet, and profit. It also a reference when talking about add value. In the wine industry, sustainability is a concern of the sector and also a competitive strategy for differentiating the quality of the product and the place where it is produced. The environmental value is a highly valued quality in the wine agribusiness. Qualities associated with the care of the environment and the biodiversity are source of value that establish new relationship between sociocultural demands, the environmental crisis, and the economic dimension in the wine production and consumption. In this sense, the current term in which quality and sustainability are related is characterized as a moral term, where those new principles and attributes such as natural, sustainable, ecological, considered fundamental to environmental thinking, are incorporated into the market. It is also worth noting that although there is a relationship between sustainable practices and quality, it isn't easy to establish and clearly define the direct and material relationship between sustainability and the sensory attributes of the wine in the final product. Concerning the relationship between sustainable practices and quality, a relevant aspect is communicating this relationship to the consumer. Certification are one of the strategies to communicate sustainable practices. In this regard, sustainability is a quality attribute and a strategy that presents certain parallels with the strategy and evaluation process of geographical indication. That is, they both depend on external evaluation. They can lead to certain homogeneity to achieve standard parameters, and it is an exclusive system for those that have the sustainable certification versus those that do not have. Overall, the current context of transformation shows that climate change and the transition to sustainability are driving not only responses and adaptation of the crop to the new environmental condition, but also adaptation in the perception of quality and value of wine production and consumption from a sociocultural and economic point of view. Characterizing, situating, and understanding this transformation based on the particular responses for each context is a first step to face the current challenges and the unpredictable future of the agri-food and wine sector at a global level. With this aim, I'm exploring transformation in Baja California wine region in Mexico. In Mexico, the wine industry is in a phase of expansion and diversification in different emerging areas of the country. At the national level, the largest wine production area is located in Baja California. In Baja California, the main wake-up calls about climate change are water scarcity, low rainfalls, overexploitation of groundwater, and land use change toward the tourism wine business. The empirical work of this first exploratory phase of the study analyzed the opinion and perception of Baja California wine producers who participate in this research through individual interviews. Within this opinion, it is found that climate change and its different effects, such as unpredictability, increasingly extreme episode, water crisis, global warming, alteration of the vine cycle, and grape composition are primary concerns. Producers also state as an essential aspect to be considered Among the global challenges, the adaptation of production to the evolution of new consumer taste and demands. Further results on this work can be consulted in a forthcoming paper. However, within a broader discussion, the case study reveals that the analytical sustainability category requires exploring subcategories such as transparency, democratization, and diversity. These as key processes for sustainable transition. Transparency to address the challenge of consumers' misinformation and confusion about what sustainable practices means and imply. Democratization and diversification to understand the changes in the profile of consumers and producers, the diversification of varieties, practices, taste, new values, and perception of wine consumption and production. Finally, these and future works that follow up on this research aim to identify and define an alternative characterization of the transition to sustainability to contribute through qualitative, sociocultural, and interdisciplinary analysis to a better understanding of the sustainable transition for each context. Thank you very much.